I mean, this is just a very brief, well, once again, anyway, last thing, I don't apologise, but it's a brief presentation really just on what my project is within Sunderland's ADS, which is the Sunderland Voluntary Community Sector Training and Development Project, which has been in operation a year at the end of this month. So some of the information on this might be slightly at the end, but I'll go through this. Basically, the presentation covers 4 areas, just a brief background, and it is a very brief background on how the project came about. A little bit on the training needs audit we did, which I think was sort of preceded the one, preceded before?
Yeah.
Yes, preceded the one which the work did. I then want to talk a little bit about the actual delivery of the project. We did the audit, then it was the nuts and bolts of actually delivering what people wanted. And then a little bit on future plans. Just a very brief background on the project. The project came about from what I can gather, because I wasn't involved at the very early stages, but within Sunderland there was what we called a Change Up Consortium, which was a body of organisations, infrastructure bodies who came together really to act as a conduit for the distribution of Change Up monies, which is a government-funded programme which looks at modernising the infrastructure of the voluntary community sector. And in previous years the budget hadn't been great, but it had been okay. But when Change Up changed to capacity building, which I think was last year, the budgets weren't quite what people expected. And I think the upshot of that was, I think the city only got about £60,000 or thereabouts to modernise the entire infrastructure of the voluntary community sector. Laughable actually, but that's another story. Because of that, the Change Up Consortium in the past had invited multiple bids, but because the pot was so small, they decided it would be sensible just to pour the money into one kind of project, so they invited tenders from infrastructure partners. An infrastructure partner, just to clarify it, is a voluntary community sector organisation whose main aim is to support and assist other voluntary community sector organisations. So the Change Up Partnership consisted of Sunderland CVS, Volunteer Centre Sunderland, Sunderland Voluntary Sector Youth Partnership, Voices, I think in 2000, and Social Enterprise Sunderland. But you'll have to forgive me if I've missed anyone because I wasn't really involved at that stage. So what happened was Volunteer Centre Sunderland and Sunderland CVS put in a joint application to the Change Up Consortium to employ a training and development coordinator, and really it was about having somebody in post who could bring together all the strands of training and development across the sector, across the city. A focal point, if you will, which I think had been missing up until that point. That bid was successful and the project commenced on the 1st of November 2006, a good relief for me. And then the training actually commenced in January 2007, and that's when we actually started delivering. There is several distinct aims to the project. There's a few more than this, but I don't go into too much detail. But the main aims of the project were to identify the joint training needs of the voluntary community sector within the city of Sunderland, to increase the awareness of training opportunities available to the voluntary community sector within the city of Sunderland. And that's something what came out of the consultation we did. One of the major barriers highlighted by the voluntary community sector was the fact that they didn't know where the training was, or they didn't know they could access it. To provide a central and accessible training venue, which I'm now sitting in, to promote Sunderland as a host for a range of high specification training events. And there's a bit of a misspelling on the capacity builders monitoring for this. Apparently I have to host several international voluntary community sector events. I don't think the IN is supposed to be on in there, but you'd imagine me despair when I did my returns. And I was supposed to have hosted a couple of international events, which obviously hasn't happened. To develop partnerships linked with a broad range of cross-sector partners, and I think there's already a lot of established links between the voluntary community sector and the statutory sector, but I think where I'm starting to explore somewhere which hasn't been tapped into is the voluntary sector working with the private sector, so we're kind of investigating ways of working in that respect. And the other aim really is to promote the use of voluntary community sector resources wherever possible in the hosting and delivery of training. So using what we've got really to keep the money within the sector, within the city, and promote the sustainability of voluntary community sector organisations. Right, the training needs all, there's probably a few people in this room who are probably sick of hearing this, but you know, I'll apologise for that, but I'll run through it briefly again for people who don't know. The consultation exercise lasted 2 months, which seems like a long period of time, but it did happen over the Christmas period, which kind of protracted the whole thing. And there's only like myself on the project, so it did take a lot longer to do this than we first anticipated. But it lasted from the 20th of November to the 6th of January 07, and it was really to identify the training needs of the voluntary community sector, and also do a little bit of work into the barriers to participation, why people weren't accessing workforce development provision. 110 voluntary community sector organisations were approached, 84 of those responded, which is about 76% response rate, which is actually not bad. We had 133 questionnaires returned. I also undertook a series of 30 informal interviews with people from organisations. And from that, 56 areas of training were identified. 38 of those were from a predetermined list, and 18 were additional, which were collated through the use of a catch-all box at the foot of the document. Just to let people know, there was a report done from this, and if anybody doesn't have a copy of the report who would like it, by all means catch me after the meeting and send you an electronic copy of that. I think it's available on our website as well. I'm not entirely sure. Just something a little bit swish, just a nice little colourful graph. Really, this is just giving you an idea of where the organisations came from, who responded to the participation, and the area of work that we're involved in. We try to get widespread as possible. What I must mention is, if you look at the participants' organisations' geography, the bulk of them seem to come from city centre.